Greetings, beautiful ones, and welcome. This is Nazanin Marashian, Love and Heart Art, deep dive into tools for empowerment and healing. In this episode, I want to share the ways in which I have navigated the notion of good selfishness as a means of strengthening my boundaries in relationships and reclaiming my personal power. In a world that often glorifies self-sacrifice and putting others first, particularly as women, the concept of good selfishness might seem counterintuitive. However, embracing a healthy form of selfishness is crucial for maintaining mental and emotional well-being. Good selfishness involves setting boundaries and prioritizing one's own needs, which will inevitably lead to more balanced and fulfilling relationships. In this episode, I want to explore how to strengthen boundaries in relationships and reclaim personal power through a series of very simple practices to cultivate the art of the good selfishness. Well, firstly, let's understand what is meant by good selfishness. When we talk about this, it's a reference to a form of deep self-care and prioritizing one's needs without causing harm to others. That is the good selfishness. Unlike the harmful selfishness, which is driven by greed or disregard for others, a place of total ego out of balance. Whereas the good selfishness is about self-respect and balance. It's about recognizing that you need to take care of yourself in order to be the best version of you in all areas of your life. And why boundaries matter. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define where one person ends and another begins. They are essential for maintaining healthy relationships because they protect our emotional, physical, and mental spaces. Without clear boundaries, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Easy to feel taken advantage of or even resentful. Setting boundaries is a fundamental aspect of the practice of good selfishness, as it allows one to honor one's own needs while fostering respectful interactions with others. It sounds so simple when I'm talking about it and even as I contemplate it, and yet it is a struggle. I personally struggle with boundaries, and I 100% lose myself in relationships, as strong as that I am, because often the overgiving nature, the generosity within me oversteps my own self, and I need to reel it all back in, and having these loving boundaries in place and practicing them is essential for self-preservation. And indeed, it's the antidote for anger and resentment in relationships. That learning with each transgression of my own boundaries, where I start losing myself and how I can reclaim my power by drawing those lines in the sand, is the nature of the good selfish practice. So let's look a little bit deeper into boundaries and how to identify and strengthen them. So firstly, we need to identify what is your boundary. It's going to be different for every individual person. And once you've figured that out, strengthening that is so important, because that is where you feel safe and respected, however that looks like for you. Reflect on the areas in your life where you might be feeling too stretched, way too thin, or where you're frequently compromising your own needs, where the no's become the yes. And this could need some time to, figure out, to unpack. But once you've done that and establishing your limit on how much you're willing to take on, or addressing how you prefer to be communicated with, understanding your boundaries is crucial for being able to express and maintain them effectively. There's no point just saying this is my boundary and there is no practice or a communication of what that is. And that is the second layer, the communication. Very important. Once you've identified where your boundary is, where your limits lie, and then communicating them clearly using I statements is very effective to express your needs without sounding accusatory or confrontational. And I think oftentimes that's where we lose ourselves in our boundaries, because the communication of them is what is difficult. And using that non-violent form of communication, those I statements. So, for example, instead of saying, you never listen to me, you could say, I feel overwhelmed when I'm not heard in our conversation. Or, I always do too much for you and you don't appreciate me. Can be, I am stretched beyond my limits now and I can do no more. And so switching that form of communication from the accusatory and the frustration behind that to that good selfishness of, this is not working for me. Yes to the person, no to the task is what I often tell people. Very effective. Because how will those we hold dear know how to talk to us if we don't show them or tell them? It can be very difficult to start off with, because not everyone is intuitive. Not everyone can read our minds, and in fact, very few can. So when we are not used to communicating our boundaries, the desire to be polite and pleasing often overshadows that. And once you start exercising your boundaries and communicating where you draw the line in the sand for yourself, you may lose people from your life once you start putting those boundaries in place, because they're used to you showing up in a certain way. And from my last episode where I mentioned about giving and receiving, often if you are the giver, you are going to attract the taker. And you must make it a priority to choose yourself in every circumstance. And then you will attract better quality relationships. And those that don't like it, well, they'll just fade away, and let them go. This is part of the good selfishness. Because being consistent is the next layer. Consistency is key when it comes to maintaining boundaries. Because once you've set a boundary, you've got to stick to it. And the consistency reinforces your limits and shows others that you're serious about your needs. When you say that's it and then you do it, well, then you're compromising your own self. But when you say that's it and that is it, then it's not about so much the rigidity or being unyielding. Okay, it doesn't mean anything like that, but what it does mean is that being firm and clear is giving everybody the opportunity to know how it is to be in your space and what you're willing to do, where you end and the other begins. And that's part of the practice of the good selfishness. And it will conserve your energy and it will preserve your relationships. Learning to say no is so important. My gosh, your biggest challenge is in setting boundaries is learning to say no. And it can be so difficult, especially if you're worried about disappointing others or feeling guilty. When you've come from that space of people pleasing, that is the number one thing that keeps you there. But it's essential that to remember that saying no is healthy and necessary part of boundary setting. It allows you to prioritize your own well-being and prevent burnout. A beautiful teaching I learned is to make your no as powerful as your yes, and really honor what you can and or are willing to do, and make that the measure of your no. And if not you, then who? Who else that is for certain knowing what you can and can't do? That is you. And I've experienced this firsthand in the situations where you show your capacity and willingness to say no strengthens that relationship. We all live in this state of FOMO, fear of missing out. And trust me, you won't. What is meant for you will never pass you by. So care for your energy in the good, selfish way. And all of this allows you to reclaim your personal power. Reclaiming your personal power involves recognizing and asserting your own needs and desires. When you set and maintain boundaries, you're taking control of your own life and well-being. And this is a key aspect. We forget this because we're thinking too much about others. But this is a fundamental part of feeling confident and in control of your own choices and your own destiny. And these practices are simple yet powerful. Have your self-awareness, cultivate self-awareness. The first step in reclaiming your personal power is to develop that self-awareness. Reflect on where you might have given up your power in relationships or situations. Consider areas where you feel disempowered and think about how boundaries could help you regain control. Self-awareness helps you understand your needs and the steps you need to take to assert them. And that is so important. And then practicing assertiveness. So awareness into assertiveness. Once you know, then you need to put in action to express your needs and desires confidently and respectfully. Come from a place of love. That's why I call it the loving boundaries. It's an essential skill for setting boundaries and reclaiming your power. And practicing using assertive communication techniques, as I mentioned, such as the I statements and clear, direct, and peaceful language is the key here. And this all is part of the prioritizing of your self-care. Crucial component of empowerment. And whatever that self-care looks like for you, where it could be, exercise, hobbies, relaxation, being in nature, caring for your physical and emotional well-being, taking care of yourself, makes you equipped to handle all the challenges and all the things that will stretch you because you've already practiced putting boundaries in place. And, seek support. Sometimes when we're so used to being a certain way and living in a certain flow of energy, it's very hard to change it. So work on thyself, seek out help when needed to really call back your power and look at your relationships and see where are you leaking all your energy out. How are you tapping in and tapping out of your life? And how can you strengthen that? Through the good selfish way. You are the creator of your life story, and each episode is up to you. And reclaiming your power is in the rewriting of how you want to be treated. And that is the potency of the good selfish way of being. And please overcome guilt and resistance. Guilt is a totally wasted emotion. Because one of the biggest hurdles in embracing the good selfish is dealing with guilt. And so, loving yourself and seeing yourself as the most important person in your life, because you are. Without you, you would not exist. And that's reframing how you're thinking about the practice of your own self-compassion. Because you know yourself better than others, and celebrate all the small victories along the way. Embracing the good selfishness is about finding that balance between honoring one's own needs and nurturing relationships, and strengthening boundaries, reclaiming personal power. All of these practices I've mentioned, awareness, assertiveness, communication, this all will create a beautiful foundation for stepping into the greater well-being of yourself and the cultivating of stronger relationships. So embrace the art of the good selfishness and watch as all of your relationships and personal satisfaction flourish. For what is meant for you will never pass you by. So I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, please like, share and subscribe for more. And until next time, beloveds, practice that good selfishness. This is Nazanin Marashian, Love and Heart Art.